5 Live Formula One.
A beautifully hot weekend for most in the UK, and whilst it may be cooling down as we head into the evening, things are hotting up in Canada. Welcome to Montreal. We're at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve for the 10th race of the Formula One season. Lights out in just a few minutes' time. We've got 70 laps of racing ahead of us, and McLaren Formula E driver Sam Bird is alongside me to guide you through every single lap of them. And it's a spicy front row, Sam Bird. George Russell on pole alongside Max Verstappen.
Spicy is a great word for it, Harry. I am looking forward to the opening couple of corners. Can George Russell hold back Max Verstappen, or are we going to see the four-time world champion making moves and getting into the lead early in this Grand Prix? Oscar Piastri obviously sitting there hoping that something happens between the two. He's in third. Lando Norris down in seventh.
And a reminder, Oscar Piastri is leading the championship coming into round 10 of 24. He leads by 10 points to his teammate Lando Norris. Max Verstappen sitting in third, now 49 points behind the top spot after his incident with George Russell last time out in Spain, which also means he now sits on 11 penalty points. One more indiscretion that results in him receiving a penalty point, and he will receive a one-race ban. How will that affect the dynamic with the other drivers around him? Over in the Constructors' Championship, McLaren lead the way by quite a healthy margin, 197 points clear of second place Ferrari. Mercedes are third, with Red Bull and Williams rounding out the top five. But so far, Sam, what we've seen this weekend, this has been a tricky track. It's a fan and driver favourite, but it's catching quite a lot of drivers out so far.
Very tricky. Looks like the track is low on grip. Everybody seems to be struggling with oversteer. The questions remain: is this a one-stop? Is this a two-stop? What will happen on the hard compound tyre? Only Sauber have tried it out, so a lot of teams will be in the unknown going into this Grand Prix. It's going to be fascinating to see how this one unfolds.
Yeah, and expecting to see really only the medium and hard tyres in action for the race. Expecting that two-stop strategy. Could some try a one-stop if we get an early safety car or a virtual safety car? Maybe if you're at the back with nothing to lose, there could be some options for you around this 4.3 kilometre, just over 2.7 mile track with 14 turns. You're getting up to speeds of over 320 kilometres an hour. We're on the Ile Notre Dame, a man-made island that once hosted the 1967 World Expo and now plays host to this Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, with a straight down to turn one, followed by a left-hander that curves you round to the right-hand side. It's slow speed corners here and long straights. Blue skies above us as the sun beats down on 20 Formula One cars, 70 laps ahead of us. It's coming up to 7 o'clock in the evening in the UK, 2 p.m. in Montreal. Possibly 4 teams in the fight for the win here. It's time for the Canadian Grand Prix. The season, 6th in his career, George Russell has the best view in the house, followed by Max Verstappen in second. Oscar Piastri is third, with Kimi Antonelli the top 4. Lewis Hamilton in the Ferrari goes from 5th, ahead of Fernando Alonso's Aston Martin. Lando Norris, with work to do for the British racer, goes from 7th, ahead of Charles Leclerc, with Alex Albon in 9th, and Franco Colapinto, a season's best, top 10. Nico Hülkenberg just outside in 11th. A 3-place grid penalty for Isaac Hadjar sees him start from 12th, ahead of the Haas of Oliver Behrman and his teammate Esteban Ocon in 14th. Gabriel Bortoleto is 15th, ahead of Carlos Sainz's Williams. Lance Stroll is 17th, with Yuki Tsunoda given a 10-place grid penalty, starts at the back in 18th. 2 cars from the pit lane, Liam Lawson's Racing Bulls and Pierre Gasly's Alpine. Well, cars already heading through the hairpin at turn 10, and Sam Bird, we know what the tyre situation is going to be heading into lap 1.
We do indeed. So it looks like the top 6 are going to be starting on the medium compound tyre. The first driver to be taking the hard at the start is Lando Norris in the McLaren. Also, Charles Leclerc directly behind him on the hard. I think that's good news for Lando, Harry. It means that nobody on the medium can really get the jump on him going into turn 1, as long as he gets a reasonable start.
Formation lap in full flow, weaving left, weaving right, crucially trying to get temperature into those tyres. If you're starting on that medium tyre, you're expecting to try and eke out to maybe around lap 24, an absolute push if you can keep it there before your first pit stop. The hard tyre, if you're starting on that, expecting to go long into this race, but you could come a cropper if there may be some safety car intervention here, which we have seen before in Canada, as they're already lining up on the start-finish grid. 83% chance of a safety car here.
And look at the way Max Verstappen's pointing his car towards George Russell there, just wanting to get a great launch from second on the grid. I really think that he's going to be going for this down into turn 1.
Well, it is a beautiful day in Montreal. Air temperatures 23.4 degrees, track temperature just below 50 degrees. 2 cars from the pit lane. As a reminder, there we'll see the Alpine of Pierre Gasly and Liam Lawson's Racing Bulls. The pit lane exit feeding into turn 2, so only 18 cars will be on the grid. It's a 152-meter rundown from pole position through to turn 1, a left-hander. They are all lined up and ready. On the second row is Antonelli and Piastri. On the front row is Verstappen and George Russell. It's all eyes to the lights and foot to the floor as we go racing in Canada, and it's a good start from George Russell, who hides that inside line into the middle of the track, takes the apex of turn 1 nicely. Verstappen defending from Piastri, who's got Kimi Antonelli of the Mercedes on the inside of him as they feed up over the hill, over turn 2, coming into the right-hander of turn 3 now. It is Russell who leads. Can Antonelli make through on Piastri? He can. Mercedes 1 and 3 as they now arc their way round through turn 5 into the braking zone of turn 6 through the trees as Russell's rear end just steps out slightly on the right-hander of 7, but it's a clean start from the Mercedes man.
Great start from Kimi Antonelli. Great car positioning by him, going around the outside of Oscar Piastri, who was boxed in a little bit by Max Verstappen, as we see one of the Williams cars bouncing across the grass and rejoining. We saw that happen in F1 Academy. Thankfully, nobody has come under a bit of damage here as we go down into the hairpin. Oh, that was a bit tight, wasn't it, Harry?
It was Alex Albon in the Williams fighting with the Alpine of Franco Colapinto. Albon felt he had to take to the grass. There is an official runoff you're supposed to use there, but by the time he was forced off, didn't quite get the chance to use it. He's joined back in, and it's now all bunched up along with Isaac Hadjar's Racing Bulls and Nico Hulkenberg's Sauber. Good start from Hulkenberg. He's up into 9th. We're at the end of lap 1, beginning lap 2 of 70. Russell leads Verstappen, Antonelli up to 3rd, Piastri in 4th, Hamilton 5th, Alonso, Norris and Leclerc as they started in 6th, 7th and 8th. Hulkenberg's up 2 positions to 9th. Colapinto holds the final points paying position currently. Then comes Isaac Hadjar, Alex Albon, Behrman, Ocon, Bortoletto the top 15, Sainz, Tsunoda, Stroll and Liam Lawson and Pierre Gasly, who came from the pit lane, now closing up to the back of the field.
Looks like the top 8 are already making a bit of a break away from Nico Hulkenberg, and I expect that gap to grow.
This the sound of the Williams driver of Alex Albon, who's coming towards the quick kink of turns 8 and 9 now. A right-hander followed by a left-hander, this time not taking over the grass. His teammate further back, Carlos Sainz, started in 16th after being impeded by Isaac Hadjar in qualifying yesterday. Hasn't been able to make up any positions in the opening lap. So the real winner here so far is Kimi Antonelli up to 3rd and Nico Hulkenberg up into 9th. Hulkenberg looking for a back-to-back point score after a top 5 finish last time out in Spain. It's George Russell who leads. DRS is now activated and Verstappen is within range.
And Piastri's not within range of Kimi Antonelli, dropping back, and actually it's Lewis Hamilton that has the DRS on him. The Mercedes have been strong all weekend, haven't they, Harry? They've looked great from FP1, especially the man who's leading the field right now, George Russell.
A reminder, if you need it, about DRS, the drag reduction system. The letterbox in the rear wing opens in the designated zones, and here in Canada it's on the start-finish straight between turn 7 and 8 and down from turn 12 all the way to the final chicane where the Wall of Champions greets you. The drivers will get a beep in their ear when it is able to be activated. Press a button on the steering wheel when they're within a second of the car in front. Gives them a couple of kilometers an hour extra speed in a straight line to use to their advantage. George Russell won't get that advantage. Max Verstappen will. He also currently holds the fastest lap. He's 8/10 behind the race leader right now. Kimi Antonelli another couple of seconds back, but as you say, Sam, Oscar Piastri not really making the gains we might have expected from him. Lewis Hamilton holds on to the top 5.
Well, we've seen time and time again, haven't we, with the McLarens, that they're good on the tyre usage. We also see them hanging back a little bit, waiting till other people hurt or destroy their tyres, and then they come charging through. So right now, I'm not too worried about where Oscar Piastri is. He's going to be conserving his tyres. Expect to see a charge towards the end of this opening stint from the young man.
Out to the exit of turn 4, getting oh so close to the wall that has seen so many crash into it. Then the left-hander of 6 takes you up through the right-hander of turn 7. This man-made island, a semi-permanent racetrack that runs now through a park created on this land. All the trees overhanging onto the asphalt, leaving bits of dust and shrubbery to be cleared out of the way by 20 Formula One cars. All 20 starters are still in this race, so a nice clean start from the entire grid. Russell still 8/10 ahead of Verstappen. Then it's Antonelli, the top 3. Piastri, Hamilton, the top 5. Alonso is 6th ahead of Norris and Leclerc. Norris and Leclerc on that alternate strategy on the hard tyre, looking to go longer into this race than those ahead of them. Hulkenberg is 9th. Franco Colapinto is 10th. Hadjar, Albon, Behrman, Ocon, Bortoletto, the top 15. Sainz, Tsunoda, Stroll, Lawson and Gasly, the 20 cars in this race, as George Russell is starting to feel the heat increase. Max Verstappen closes up, under braking right the curb, downhill through the right-hander of turn 3, then the left of turn 4, as Piastri is told might well be going to plan B in this race.
I mean, plan B could be a one-stop, couldn't it, Harry? I think most people were expecting a 2-stop, but with Lando Norris sitting there and Charles Leclerc sitting there, both on the hard compound, maybe they're reporting back going, you know what, these tyres feel fine. They feel quite good.
It'll ask a lot. You could do it if you could make it to around lap 30 and then come in for a hard tyre and go to the end. It could well work for you, and if you're not able to make the gains in front of you like Piastri is, you may as well drop back a little bit, give yourself some clean air, because the last thing you want to do is get into the hot, dirty air of the car behind you, which is where Max Verstappen finds himself, right up behind George Russell through the Wall of Champions chicane. A quick right-left feeds you back out onto the start-finish straight. DRS for Max Verstappen, closes in, but there's not enough time before turn 1. The left-hander beckons, slams on the brake. Russell lives to fight another day.
It's really interesting about the strategy already that we're speaking about, a 1-stop versus a 2-stop. It looks like the two at the front, George Russell and Max Verstappen, are going hell for leather, pushing for all their worth, trying to either retain the lead or get the lead in Max Verstappen's case, which then pushes them towards a 2-stop, because they're going to be taking too much out of their tyres to be able to do a 1. Whereas, as we've heard, Piastri plan B, does that mean a 1-stop? Lando Norris starting on the hard, Charles Leclerc starting on the hard, does that mean a 1-stop? It already, even after lap 6, we're already speaking about the strategy.
Yeah, expecting Norris and Leclerc, who start from that hard tyre, that should come into its own a little bit more in a couple of laps' time. We might see their pace start to increase slightly. Just for comparison, Lando Norris last lap around was a 1:16.8, a second slower than George Russell. The tyre disparity there is on this lap around. Max Verstappen has lost ground on George Russell.
Well, I think he's giving his tyres a bit of a break, actually, Harry. You heard him lift and coasting into turn 10 quite heavily, taking it nice and steady. I think he's a bit, doesn't want to be in too much turbulent air behind George Russell, wants to give those tyres a little bit of a breather.
Out through turn 2, the gap now just over a second as we're going to get another look at the race start. It was a clean start for George Russell away, and really didn't have to do too much defending going down into turn one. It was Kimi Antonelli who really came into his own, coming through the right-hander and really putting the pressure on Oscar Piastri's McLaren, running side by side into the right-hander of 3, and Piastri had to bail out of it. 2 into 1 through there. Doesn't happen too often, and on that case it didn't, and Kimi Antonelli was able to get the position.
Yeah, good car placement from Kimi Antonelli. It helped him that Oscar Piastri was trying to fight with Max Verstappen, going round the outside, which gave him the inside line then into turn 2, and just held the inside line all the way to turn 3. Good Formula 1 racing.
These two, Max Verstappen and George Russell, with history over the last few years, haven't always been the best of friends, and I'm not sure Alex Albon will be sending Franco Colapinto a happy birthday card anytime soon, after he was well, he might have felt that he was shoved off into the grass and he really bounced back onto the circuit coming through turn 8.
So if that's not an unsafe rejoin, then Sebastian Vettel shouldn't have lost the Grand Prix 4 or 5 years ago. That's my opinion anyway, because we haven't seen anything up from the stewards yet, but that's a mighty unsafe rejoin.
I would agree with you. He bounced over the grass, looked out of control on the rejoin, actually allowed Nico Hülkenberg to gain a couple of positions. Albon coming back into the path of Hülkenberg, Sauber, Colapinto and Hadjar were all right there too. Now Albon finds himself at the back of that little gaggle in 11th place. My one counter to your position there, Sam, is that this is lap 1 of a race.
It shouldn't matter. A rule is a rule. An unsafe rejoin is an unsafe rejoin in my book. But anyway, we're now getting to quite a critical phase of the race. It's lap 8. People wanted to try and scrap for positions early on. It looks like everybody's calmed down now and is just in a tyre saving phase. It doesn't look like much is going on. Trust me, they're busy working very, very hard in the cockpits of these cars, making sure they keep their tyre life in perfect order.
And seeing a bit of a DRS train develop possibly in that midfield. You have to say, Nico Hülkenberg and the Sauber doing a great job for them, up in 9th at the moment. He's 1.4 seconds ahead of Franco Colapinto. It's a big race for him too, after a really tough start to his life at Alpine since he came in a couple of rounds ago to replace fellow rookie Jack Doohan. Franco Colapinto, who we did see towards the back end of last year racing for Williams, has been given a lifeline once more with Alpine, but so far hasn't looked at ease with his Alpine. Good qualifying from him, hoping to cling on to a point. However, he has got Isaac Hadjar, Alex Albon, Ollie Behrman, Esteban Ocon, Bortoletto, Sainz, and pretty much the rest of the field right behind him.
Front deck is better than FP2, rear deck is worse.
Okay, so front degradation better than expected. Rear degradation is worse for Oscar Piastri and the McLaren on the medium tyre, which is interesting. McLaren all throughout the season so far have had an ace up their sleeve with a nice cooling trick to keep their tyre temperatures in range to help them with their degradation. Feeling it slightly out there around this circuit, Gilles Villeneuve.
And if McLarens are feeling it, everybody else will be feeling it as well. So let's just, if there's any more radio communications with any teams, it'll be interesting to see what everybody else's rear deg is going to be like.
Closing up under braking, nice battle unfolding in the midfield. Isaac Hadjar half a second behind Franco Colapinto in 10th. Alpine versus Racing Bulls there. Alpine have been relegated now to last place in the Constructors' Championship after Sauber managed to pick up 10 points last time around. So Alpine looking to try and do some damage limitation and get some points back on the board. It's lap 10 of 70. It's round 10 of the 2025 Formula 1 season. We're in Canada at the circuit Gilles Villeneuve. From pole position, it is George Russell who leads the field, now with a gap of 1.6 seconds to Max Verstappen. Kimi Antonelli is up a position into 3rd. Oscar Piastri down to 4th and struggling possibly with some tyre degradation issues on his rear tyres. Hamilton is 5th. Alonso, Norris, Leclerc, Hülkenberg and Colapinto the top 10.
These tyres are not great. We're seeing higher deg than expected on medium as well with graining.
So that's Charles Leclerc, who was on the hard tyre, not happy with how they're faring. His engineer almost trying to reassure him slightly that, well, it's just as bad for those on the medium tyres too.
I think that pushes pretty much everybody maybe towards that two-stop that everybody thought it could be. It was worth a shot, but if the deg is this high, then I think it's going to be a two-stop. We're now looking at Lando Norris applying the pressure on the stalwart of Formula One, which is Fernando Alonso. Alonso now dropping back a little bit from the back of Lewis Hamilton, but Lando Norris can't find a way through.
Thoughts on tyres, please, Max?
Not good. It's very fragile.
Very fragile is what Verstappen is reporting about his tyres. So general negative vibes towards the tyres so far. Up and down the field. It's lap 11 of 70. Expecting the first pit stops. Well, if you're on the medium, lap 15 would be an early stop. Let's see how much they can eke it out. Down into the hairpin though for Lando Norris. Side by side on the exit with Fernando Alonso's Aston Martin. Down the long back straight to the left of them. The rowing lake to the right. The St. Lawrence River, and before the braking zone beckons, Lando Norris is through on Fernando Alonso. Norris takes 6th away from the Spaniard in the Aston Martin.
And now he'll set about catching the back of the Ferrari of Lewis Hamilton. The other driver applying a lot of pressure is Kimi Antonelli, the young Italian, applying pressure to the 4-time world champion Max Verstappen. I reckon Mercedes are on the radio trying to get him to apply pressure to alleviate the threat for George Russell.
Kimi Antonelli looking for his first Formula One Grand Prix podium this weekend. If he can hold on to it, he's had a rough triple header to get through. 2 retirements and a non-point score finish. This is the boost that the young 18-year-old who stepped into the shoes of Lewis Hamilton will need, and he really is closing on the back of the reigning champion. Once one of the youngest Formula One drivers to win a race is indeed.
We are monitoring issues similar to Barcelona with the PU, not as bad.
That's Alex Albon's radio. Possibly some PU issues. Mercedes will be worried about that. It's a Mercedes power unit in the back of it. Down the back straight though with DRS. Antonelli to the inside of Verstappen, who goes straight into the pits. And Verstappen is in. That's early. It's lap 12. Verstappen bails out of it. Antonelli through up into second. Max Verstappen then complaining that his tyres were feeling very fragile. Started on a set of used mediums which he qualified on. Hits his marks and he's sent out again on a brand new set of hards.
That is a very, very early undercut, Harry. Very early, but I still think he can make a two-stop work, but that is much earlier than expected.
Verstappen feeds out into turn 2, just ahead of Franco Colapinto. Red Bull have timed that well, actually, because there is a really big battle going on in the midfield involving Isaac Hadjar, the 2 Haas cars. Esteban Ocon and Ollie Behrman are nose to tail, along with Gabriel Bortoleto, and I'm sure a frustrated Carlos Sainz, and an equally frustrated Red Bull of Yuki Tsunoda, who is looking at the field in front of him and thinking, how on earth can I get through all of this traffic, because they are fighting so hard. And for Haas, celebrating 200 years, looking to try and steal a point. They've got a way to go, but Esteban Ocon has already picked off Isaac Hadjar with a lovely move with the aid of DRS into the right-hander of turn 8. Ocon through and up into 12 as George Russell and Mercedes respond to Max Verstappen. Russell comes into the pits now from the lead of this race as it gets oh so tight into the hairpin. Carlos Sainz against Gabriel Bortoleto on the exit. The Brazilian rookie, the reigning Formula 2 champion, trying to get through as George Russell is sent on his way, and on the hard tyre he goes too. Now, average pit loss here under green flag conditions, you're looking between 18 to 19 seconds. So this is George Russell and Mercedes responding to an undercut by Max Verstappen, and they should find themselves once again ahead of the Dutchman. Russell feeds out just ahead of Nico Hulkenberg Sauber into 7th.
Yeah, quite comfortably ahead, but now he's got to fire those hard compound tyres up. Max Verstappen will have them nicely up to temperature now. The problem that everybody's having with tyres right now, Harry, is not the core temperature, it's the surface temperature of the tyre. And it's the core temperature that McLaren have been so good at keeping under control. At this track, with the amount of sliding that everybody's doing, it's actually the surface temperature of the tyre that everybody's having troubles with.
Russell has pitted. So this is plan A. We need one of those amazing races from you here.
Plan A, we need one of those amazing races from you. That's the message from Will Joseph to Lando Norris, as Kimi Antonelli is now told to box. That means to come into the pits and take your new set of tyres. Piastri takes over in the lead of this race. Hamilton up to second. Norris stays out. Remember, Norris and Leclerc started this race on the hard tyres, so they're committing to going longer into this race. So Will Joseph asking Lando Norris for expert tyre management and pace when needed to make that strategy work. Colapinto has also come in from the top 10. Where does Kimi Antonelli feed out? He comes out behind Max Verstappen in 9th position. So Piastri leads on lap 15 of 70, 3.2 seconds clear of Lewis Hamilton, who is only just ahead of Lando Norris. Then comes Charles Leclerc and Fernando Alonso. The top 5 have not pitted. George Russell has pitted and is effectively the net leader. Hulkenberg is 7th, Verstappen is 8th, has pitted, along with Kimi Antonelli. Albon the top 10, with the 2 Haas cars just on the fringes of points in 11th and 12th. And a point of order, I did actually say 200 years that Haas was celebrating. It's actually 200 races.
And Lando Norris now scything past the 7-time world champion Lewis Hamilton and up into 2nd place in the race, making those hard tyres work very well at this point in the race.
Yeah, he'd been closing in on the 7-time champion, who actually has come into the pits anyway. So Hamilton is called in to the Ferrari pit box, where the mechanics are awaiting him. Let's watch to see if he hits his marks. He does so, gets lifted up onto the jacks. All 4 medium tyres come on, and they stick 4 new hard tyres on for Lewis Hamilton as he heads back out into the race on lap 16 of 70. Is he going to get out ahead of the midfield traffic coming into the right-hander of turn 2? Just about gets ahead of Ollie Behrman's Haas. He's behind Esteban Ocon, though, in the other Haas, so we'll have to try and displace the Frenchman ahead of him as quickly as possible. Hamilton and the Ferrari with more pace than the Haas. Piastri leads, though, on the medium tyre, yet to come into the pits, as we are now into the expected pit window of the medium tyre if you started on that tyre. But Max Verstappen kicking things off early and coming in on lap 12.
It's interesting what Oscar Piastri's doing, staying out an extra few laps. Does that mean that he's going to come into play right at the end of this Grand Prix, when the 2 leaders in Max Verstappen and George Russell, tyres are fading away?
I think Piastri has come into the pits.
Oh, well, that's that then.
Yeah, he's come in. Oscar Piastri in the Papaya McLaren comes in. His teammate Lando Norris takes over as race leader. Hits his marks and changes on to the hard tyres, and away he goes back into this race. So a fairly neat and tidy stop from the McLaren team, 2.1 seconds. So Norris now takes over the lead of this Grand Prix. Charles Leclerc in 2nd, both on the hard tyre. Started there, they started down in 7th and 8th, going longer into this race. They have yet to pit.
How long can they eke it out? That's the interesting thing. How long can Lando Norris and Charles Leclerc keep those hard compound tyres alive? And that'll be the difference between a potential 1-stop and a 2-stop.
Well, it's turning into a rather intriguing race at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. This is the sound of Kimi Antonelli making his way past Nico Hulkenberg Sauber, who has stayed out on the medium tyre, and Antonelli makes quick work at that with the age of DRS now. Barrels down towards the hairpin at turn 10, the right-hander, the sun shining off the silver arrow of the Mercedes. Norris leads on lap 17 of 70, Charles Leclerc 2nd, both yet to pit. Russell, who has pitted from the lead, is now in 3rd. Verstappen in 4th, 8.6 seconds behind Norris, just a couple of seconds behind Russell. Antonelli the top 5, Hulkenberg, Piastri, Albon is 8th ahead of Ocon, and Lewis Hamilton the top 10. As we just getting a look at a rather bold move from the Williams of Carlos Sainz, locked up coming down into the hairpin, fighting with the Sauber of Gabriel Bortoleto, rather forced his way past the Brazilian rookie in the green Sauber. That allowed Yuki Tsunoda to get a good run on the reigning Formula 2 champion. Down the back straight, just ducked out in time from the right-hand side of the Sauber to avoid any contact. Later onto the brakes, into the final chicane, and Tsunoda picked off Bortoleto as well. So 2 corners for Bortoleto, and unfortunately 2 positions lost for him. He's now down in 14th.
I mean, the minimum speeds that we're seeing through some of the corners is so far down on what we saw in qualifying, just so that the drivers can look after these tyres. It's quite incredible.
This will be the question that we now hope to see the answer unfold ahead of us. Can Lando Norris and Charles Leclerc on those hard tyres come into play here at the end of lap 18 of 70? The sun shining down, air temperature just under 24 degrees, track temperature hopping up to 50 degrees and heating up inside the McLaren cockpit for Oscar Piastri, who breezes past Nico Hülkenberg. Sauber in time for the final chicane, clips the curves on the right, then the left, and eases himself onto the start-finish straight to begin lap 19. Piastri, who had pitted from 4th place in this race, he was relegated to at the end of lap 1, is now finding himself in 6th and has just set the fastest lap time as well. Ollie Behrman in the Haas has also just come into the pits further back. I wonder what happened to Franco Colapinto, because he's now down in 18th. Alonso is also down in 17th. They have both pitted along with Hadjar, so actually that probably is about right where they came out there. So everyone from Sainz in 11th down to Gasly in 16th have yet to pit, so they should shuffle up the field. But they'll be hoping that traffic clears sooner rather than later.
It's nicely mixed at the moment, isn't it, Harry? I mean, I'm quite excited to see how this one plays out in 20 or 30 laps time. We've got people going long, we've got people pitting very, very early, even earlier than what we expected due to the surface temperature and the degradation. This one's going to be, it's a little bit of a slow burner, but I think it's fascinating how it's going to play out.
Certainly is. Lap 20 of 70. And some manoeuvres in the midfield taking place. Esteban Ocon has just displaced Alex Albon, and Hamilton in the Ferrari is right behind along with Carlos Sainz. Nico Hülkenberg in the Sauber has finally come into the pits as well. It's Lando Norris who leads this race, has yet to pit along with Charles Leclerc. They're both going long into this race on the hard tyre. George Russell from pole position led this race until his first pit stop. He's now 3rd ahead of Max Verstappen, Kimi Antonelli, the top 5. Oscar Piastri 6th ahead of Ocon. Then comes Hamilton, Sainz and Albon, the top 10. Sainz just getting through on his teammate Alex Albon, so the two Williams drivers having a nice scrap there.
Well, I think Albon's on the medium tyre still and clearly struggling a lot with pace right now. Carlos Sainz starting further back and opting to start on the hard, as you would. Also, Alex Albon with that huge moment across the grass on lap 1. I wonder if he's got any floor damage or grass in the rads creating some overheating with the engine.
You're listening to the Canadian Grand Prix on BBC Radio 5 Live, lap 21 of 70. Here's Albon Radio.
I don't really know why you don't listen to me. I'm really good answer.
Alex Albon saying, I don't really know why you don't listen to me. It really annoys me on the radio. So perhaps Albon is not happy with the strategy that is unfolding down at Williams at the moment. There is a tyre disparity there with Albon starting on the medium tyre and Sainz on the hard tyre. Sainz had work to do from the back of the pack as Hamilton has also just worked his way past Esteban Ocon now and up into 7th place. By the way, following us on 5 Live, we're going to have a full news summary for you ahead as well of continued coverage of day 4 of the US Open Golf, and it's been a big day of sports already on 5 Live. Over in the tennis, Tatiana Maria became the first women's champion at Queen's.
Don't box now, don't box now. Forget boxing now. We can't do all that and then box.
So Albon again on the radio, really frustrated inside that Williams car. The London-born Thai having just been part of a more orchestrated swap with Sainz on a harder tyre now ahead of him, being told to box, but now Albon doesn't want to box.
Well, I can see his frustration. It's like he's been caught in no man's land if he boxes now. He's kind of in between the early stoppers and people that are stopping on the hard compound. And he's losing so much time on the mediums, though, that Williams, do they have a choice? They've got to pit him at some point, but they should have pitted him 4 or 5 laps ago.
He has also possibly got a bit of a power unit issue, though, as well, on board Alex Albon's Williams. It's a Mercedes power unit. We heard that on the team radio a little early on. Something similar they were managing in Barcelona last time out.
Yeah, but it doesn't help as well when you fill the rads with grass, Harry.
No, that's not going to help, is it? Albon is currently now down in 11th because Tsunoda has just got through on him. Tsunoda now inside the top 10. So it's coming back into the hands of the hard tyre now. And those who started on it, they're now reaping the rewards of the pace there. And we're now just getting a replay of Yuki Tsunoda, the Japanese driver in that second Red Bull seat with the aid of DRS, down the just over 1 kilometre back straight that feeds into the pit lane should you so choose and go straight on, or to continue around the racetrack you brake and head to the right for the final chicane. Tsunoda doing just that.
I mean, Alexander Albon's tyres, the medium compound tyres, look absolutely horrible. I mean, the band of the graining on the front left looks nasty, and then he's got a nasty band of graining also on the rear right.
The front runners in this race, as they currently stand, have yet to pit. Lando Norris on the hard tyre, enjoying the pace out there at the moment with clear air too for the British driver as the Sauber of Gabriel Bortoleto. Looking very shaky behind the Williams of Alex Albon, trying to decide which way round to overtake the Thai driver or down the back straight. Ended up choosing the left way and got in front of him as Albon now is just tumbling down the order as Fernando Alonso, who started this race in 6th and pitted earlier, has now made his way through. Albon is dropping through the field now, down in 13th.
And somebody who's not dropping but closing in is Max Verstappen onto the back of George Russell. Remember, those two are the leaders with regards to who's pitted. Lando Norris, Charles Leclerc yet to stop.
And they lead this race. Then it's Russell, Verstappen, the top 4, Antonelli 5th, Piastri 6th, Hamilton 7th, Ocon, Sainz, Tsunoda the top 10, Bortoleto is 11th, Alonso is 12th, ahead of Albon, who's lost 4 places in the last lap, Stroll 14th, Lawson 15th, Gasly is 16th, ahead of Hulkenberg, who was up in the points and pitted along with Colapinto, then Isaac Hadjar in 19th, and Ollie Behrman, who was also pitted, down in 20th and last. So those who have yet to pit, the front runners of Norris and Leclerc, along with Ocon, Sainz, Tsunoda, Bortoleto and Albon. And then we've also got the sound you're hearing now is Lance Stroll, who's just breezed past Alex Albon to continue the Thai driver's pain. And finally, he is in for some new tyres. Alex Albon has reached the absolute limit as he heads towards the pit lane and into the Williams garage. A bit early on his marks, and it's a slightly slower than anticipated stop on the rear, but it sends him off again 3 seconds, which is slow in this day and age of Formula One, but he's back on the road again on a fresh set of boots.
Plan B.
I think plan C.
Copy.
Okay, typical Ferrari strategist, plan A, B, C, D, E, F, G, plan Z maybe. It's interesting, this one, and I've spoken about it quite a few times already. So in our eyes, George Russell, Max Verstappen, they're going to be going on a 2-stop. It all depends on how far Lando Norris and Charles Leclerc can eke out this first stint. We're now seeing George Russell catching the back of Charles Leclerc, but not at an alarming rate of knots. Charles Leclerc and Lando Norris need to keep going on this set and try and make a 1-stop work if they're going to have any shout of getting on the podium, or in fact fighting for the win. It could get very, very interesting.
Could this be 2-stop versus 1-stop here? They're kind of like for like in the times as well. Last lap around, Lando Norris and Charles Leclerc, both on a 1:16.1. The gap between them 3 seconds. I think Charles Leclerc might well be wanting to get that 1-stop, because at the end of the day, starting down an 8th, how much do you have to lose? As Lance Stroll, the Canadian in the field, returning to Grand Prix action, having missed Spain last time out for a wrist injury, which he has now recovered from. Back into this race, having just pitted, and he'll come out down in 19th place. Albon is back out there too, down in 20th and last. The question will be is what happens, Sam, if we get some sort of safety car, some sort of virtual safety car? Who is that going to benefit at this stage of the race?
I think it benefits the 2-stoppers, not the 1-stoppers, to be honest, Harry. I think it's a bit too early for a 1-stopper to come in, especially for Norris and Leclerc, who are currently on the hard compound. So at the moment, it absolutely benefits Russell and Verstappen.
Russell has closed right up to the back of Charles Leclerc now. A tyre disparity here. They're both on the hard tyres, but Charles Leclerc's much older. George Russell with the fastest lap as well. Through the trees they go, the oaks, the maples, the conifers that overlook this circuit, Gilles Villeneuve, and almost flop onto parts of the circuit that create the shadows that the cars run over under the bridge for both Leclerc and George Russell into the right-hander of turn 8. Russell will be lining this one up towards the hairpin next. Will he go for the inside for a late braking manoeuvre? Will he time it down the back straight onto the DRS? He closes up into the hairpin. Good traction on exit for George Russell. This should be easy for the Mercedes driver. Charles Leclerc in the Scarlet Ferrari. Russell in the Silver Arrow to the right-hand side with the DRS. And before they even reach the braking zone, Russell is ahead. Leclerc tries to think about responding with a dart down the inside, but thinks better of it. Russell up into second, with Lando Norris now in his sights.
Yeah, I was thinking that Charles Leclerc could have been Lando Norris's best friend there in holding up the Mercedes, but it was too easy for George Russell down the back straight, DRS wide open, and through he goes into second place. Now he's going to set about trying to catch the papaya car.
I think that's sensible from Charles Leclerc, though, because at the end of the day, there is a huge tyre disadvantage here. He doesn't need to waste time trying to keep George Russell behind him.
Well, no, not if he's on a one-stop. Not if he's on a one-stop. His race is different right now compared to George Russell, who is going to have to be pushing if he's going to keep Charles Leclerc and Lando Norris behind come the end of the race, because they will have the advantage. They're not stopping. They don't lose that 19 seconds that you lose by doing a pit stop. So right now, I don't know which way this race is going to go. It's really, really interesting between the top four.
That's the voice of McLaren's Formula E driver Sam Bird alongside myself, Harry Benjamin. You're listening to the sound of 70 laps unfold across the circuit, Gilles Villeneuve, for round 10 of the Formula One World Championship. It's the Canadian Grand Prix, and a really intriguing strategic race unfolding. Is it 2 pit stops versus the 1 pit stoppers? It's lap 27 of 70. And it's just become lap 28. Lando Norris leads, having started on the hard tyre, yet to pit, perhaps trying to go as long as he can to do only 1 pit stop. George Russell is now second, though, 1.8 seconds back. Russell started on pole, pitted earlier, and is looking at a 2-stop strategy. So for Russell, he needs to catch up and pass Norris as soon as possible. Charles Leclerc doing the same as Norris, perhaps in third. Verstappen is now right behind him. It was Russell and Verstappen on the front row of the grid, and it's Russell in second, Verstappen in fourth. As it currently stands, Antonelli the top 5, Piastri, Hamilton, Ocon, Sainz, Tsunoda the top 10, although he might just be about to get relegated to 11 as Fernando Alonso is eyeing the Japanese driver up. Bortoletto is 12, Lawson, Gasly, Hulkenberg the top 15, then it's Colapinto, Hajar, Behrman, Stroll and Albon. 20 drivers all still in this race.
We're just about to see another driver potentially get demoted, aren't we, with Max Verstappen hounding the back of Charles Leclerc. A little bit of a weak exit, though, out to the hairpin. I think Charles Leclerc will survive down this back straight, as Charles Leclerc is told to box. Box for Ferrari.
Here we go, lap 28, and on the hard tyre, Charles Leclerc has decided to call it quits for his first pit stop. In he comes, slams on the pit limiter, gets down to 80 kilometres an hour as he trundles down the pit lane towards the Ferrari box, where the mechanics await for him, hits his marks as the mechanics get to work, and it's another set of hard tyres for Charles Leclerc.
That's a 2-stop. That's a 2-stop for Charles Leclerc. So now it's down to what Lando Norris can do. Can he eke out that tyre life? Everybody else is going for a 2-stop.
Wow. Charles Leclerc, you just heard on the radio there, not understanding why they were going for that tyre choice. This is intriguing. How is this going to play out for Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari? He has come back out into this race in 6th place, 4 seconds ahead of his teammate Lewis Hamilton. All eyes will be then on Lando Norris, who we thought might have been on a similar strategy to Charles Leclerc. Norris, who currently leads this field on the hard tyre. We'll see, he's coming into the final sector now, and he does come in. Lando Norris is coming into the pits as well, so Lando Norris responding to what Charles Leclerc and Ferrari are going to do, or have done. So Leclerc pitted from second and put another set of hard tyres on, and has come out in 6th. Lando Norris now comes in. That gives George Russell the lead again. Crucial time for McLaren and the pit wall to get this one right as he hits his marks, and it's not the hard tyre going on again, it's the medium tyre for Lando Norris. That's what we would expect as he trundles out of the pit exit and barrels towards turn 2.
Well, at least that gives him the option to at least try. But let's see what he can do. I personally, I think that's way too early, and I don't think he'll be able to make it to the end, but it gives them the opportunity to, if there's a safety car or a delay of some sort, they can stay out there. So I think decent thinking by the McLaren strategist there to kind of give him the opportunity to do both strategies now.
Yeah, but 40 laps on a medium tyre at full racing speed.
But it splits the race up nicely. He's now covered both compounds.
And all it takes is for some kind of safety car to make the one-stop swing back towards the advantage of a George Russell. Also of a Lando Norris, sorry.
Also, Harry, he can now really get after the people in front, Charles Leclerc.
Why have we boxed? Why did we box?
We're on plan B.
Yeah, but I was just telling you tyres were fine.
Charles Leclerc disagreeing with the strategists. So Lando Norris now has a great opportunity to go, do you know what? I'm going to have 15 to 20 laps of my best. I'm going to give it absolutely everything and close up to the back of Piastri, Antonelli, Verstappen, Russell. See how close I can get to the front. And when they pit, I pit, and then it's a straight fight to the end.
Lap 31 of 70, and the top 7 have now all pitted at least once. It's Russell, who is now back up into the lead of this Grand Prix. Max Verstappen is second, Kimi Antonelli is third. Then it's Piastri and Norris, the top 5. Leclerc in 6th, Hamilton is 7th, and then comes Esteban Ocon and the Haas in 8th, yet to pit along with Sainz. Fernando Alonso is 10th, he has pitted, looking to move himself up the order now. Yuki Tsunoda is in 11th, not pitted, along with Bortoletto, Lawson, Gasly, who have not pitted. He's in 14th. Hulkenberg then leads the remaining of the drivers who have pitted, who have fallen to the back of the field now.
Gentle entry 3 and 8. Gentle entry 3 and 8.
We are racing, not testing.
We are racing, not testing, is what Fernando Alonso responds with when asked to take it easy and be gentle coming through turn 3 and 8. And he is gaining and gaining and gaining with every lap that goes by, closing up to his compatriot Carlos Sainz. It should be fairly easy pickings for Fernando Alonso, who has pitted, unlike the Williams of Sainz. Just to run you through the remainder of the order, after Hulkenberg in 15th, it's Colapinto, Hadjar, Behrman, Stroll and Albon 20th and last. All 20 runners still in this one.
Obviously, Aston Martin concerned about the amount of energy going through the tyre in those two right-hand corners. Left-hand tyre, especially the front left-hand tyre, looks very, very angry on all those cars after about 10 laps or so. So I understand why Aston Martin are telling him that. Fernando Alonso, though, no thank you, guys, I'm racing.
The sound of 20 Formula One cars racing their way around the circuit. Gilles Villeneuve on the Ile Notre Dame, which lies on the St. Lawrence River. Once home to the 1976 Summer Olympics. The rowing lake still very much present around this track. And on lap 33 of 70, it's now just settling down slightly. We're still expecting some more pit stops from those in the midfield. But the questions are, well, can Lando Norris possibly go to the end on a medium tyre if there's some intervention, as one of the Haas cars gets all out of shape? It's Ollie Behrman coming through the kink of turn 8, finds the grass but manages to keep it pointing in the right direction. Lost a bit of ground there to Isaac Hadjar, who's in 17th, Behrman down in 18th, and it's pretty line astern from Gasly, from Lawson, Gasly, Hulkenberg, Colapinto and Hadjar. There's no points up for grabs for these guys at the moment, but certainly pride at stake. Lawson, who started from the pit lane after the team elected to change pretty much as many power unit elements as they could and make some setup changes. They did the same on the Alpine car of Pierre Gasly, who is right behind him. Then it's Hulkenberg, Colapinto, who was looking to try and get his first points of the season, having started inside the top 10. This is the sound of Ollie Behrman heading towards the right-hander of turn 8, and before he even turned into the corner, the rear end just loose on him, having to correct the steering, and as a result, dipped a wheel onto the grass, kicked up a bit of dust, but managed to keep it going.
As soon as he turned that car into the right-hander, the rear end was having absolutely none of it. It just goes to show that there is very, very little grip out there for the drivers this afternoon, as we see both drivers, both the Williams and the Aston Martin of Fernando Alonso, going deep at the hairpin, both scrambling for grip on those overly worn hard compound tyres now.
Fernando Alonso breezes past Sainz finally into the final chicane and gets himself up into 9th. Hearing from Williams that James Vowles has confirmed that the team are trying to one-stop Alex Albon today. He's down in 20th in the at the moment, so he is in for a long old afternoon, but he is on that hard tyre, having made his stop and stayed out perhaps beyond the life of his medium tyres after losing about 5-6 positions in the space of 2 laps before coming into the pits.
Yeah, the problem that he's got is in order to make hay with a one-stop. Right, we're not even halfway through the race yet. We're nearly halfway through, aren't we? But take 20 seconds away from his time, he'd just be at the end of the top 10 now. So I think he's going to have to get a lick on and preserve his tyre life. It's going to be a big ask for him this afternoon.
We're coming up to the halfway point of this Canadian Grand Prix here on BBC Radio 5 Live. Elsewhere in the tennis earlier today, Tatiana Maria won the Queen's Championship, the first woman to do that for 52 years, and earlier in the football as well, in the Under-21s European Championship, England in action against Slovenia. It was 0-0 with extra time added in that game as well. And if you are waiting for live action of the US Open Golf, that will be following us here on 5 Live at the conclusion of this Canadian Grand Prix, with a full news summary as well. The latest headlines coming your way at the close of 70 laps of racing here in Canada. Lots of action unfolding in this Grand Prix though. George Russell leads Max Verstappen. That is how they started this race. Kimi Antonelli made gains on the opening lap and still holds that 3rd position, looking for his first podium of the season, first podium of his career if he can get it, as we are over the halfway mark point now. Piastri 4th, Norris 5th, Leclerc with an interesting strategy choice for him, going on to another set of hard tyres. Definitely 2 stopping now for Charles Leclerc. Has to run the other set of tyres, the other compound of tyre in this race, as per the rules of Formula 1 racing. Hamilton 7th, Ocon 8th, Alonso and Sainz the top 10.
I think we're resigned to the fact that everybody is going to be 2 stopping this afternoon. The question, though, is can Lando Norris close that gap to Oscar Piastri? And when he does, will there be team orders to say, look, Lando Norris is on the medium, he's going to set about getting towards Kimi Antonelli, so let Lando through, see what he can do, and then maybe swap towards the end of the race.
That 36 of 70, Pierre Gasly has just been asked to swap positions with Franco Colapinto, who pitted much earlier in this race, started up inside the top 10, while Gasly started down the order and actually started from the pit lane, having qualified at the back. The team elected to change power unit elements on that Alpine car before sending him racing, so Colapinto's now up into 15th.
Nowhere in this race, mate. Don't know what's happened. Pace is good considering the damage.
That's Hamilton saying he's nowhere in this race, but his engineer responding with pace is good considering the damage. So has Hamilton picked up some damage somewhere that we might not have seen? We haven't seen it.
Yeah, potentially some floor damage early on in the race. Maybe he's been carrying that for a while now. The man that we haven't spoken about very much at all over the last sort of 10, 12 laps is George Russell, serenely going about his business. 5.5 seconds clear now of Max Verstappen, the young Mercedes driver, doing a really solid job at this stage of the race.
This is the sound of him making his way through the left-hander of 9. Bit of curb on the exit, towards the hairpin he goes.
Well, this is Kimi Antonelli closing in to the back of Max Verstappen. George Russell is way down the road. He's not even visible as we see Kimi Antonelli exit turn 10, blast down the straight, and he's within DRS range of the four-time world champion. No, he's not. Just about misses it.
He might have not. Yeah, there's the detection point which comes before out of the exit at 9, but he is now within a second as Max Verstappen comes in for his second pit stop at the end of lap 38. Verstappen is in, so Antonelli pops himself up into second, Piastri through to third. Verstappen then hits his marks outside the Red Bull garage. The mechanics get to work. It's a nice clean stop. 2.2 seconds by the Red Bull team as he heads out on the hard tyre. Was that the hard tyre? I didn't quite see the colour of it.
But Harry, that's a hard tyre, but that's 32 laps he's got to do on a hard set of tyres. That's an awfully long way. I mean, a Red Bull considering a 3-stop, something that we hadn't even considered, because 32 laps on this tyre on this day where we know that surface degradation is absolutely huge. I mean, if he's to do a 3-stop, I mean, we need Andrew Benson here right now.
He's in Five Lives Race Centre.
I know, but I need him in my ear now telling me what on earth is going on, because I mean, that seems so early.
I think Verstappen is struggling out there, though. He was, and has had to come in clearly for a new set of boots, and Antonelli is now following suit. I think degradation in general is higher than anybody has anticipated so far this weekend. The track temperature has actually fallen a little bit to 49 degrees now as Antonelli comes into the pits, staring at a first Formula One podium. If he can make it to the end of 70 laps, he'll feed out in some clean air. He should feed out. I think Verstappen might just get him. It's going to be close, though. Kimi Antonelli's going to have the better run out of turn 2, but Verstappen will have more heat into the tyres side by side over the crest, out of the exit of turn 2 towards turn 3. Verstappen gets Antonelli, but Antonelli is so close now. We'll just need a few corners to get heat into those tyres, and the battle is on between Antonelli and Verstappen. Mercedes feeling the need to respond then to Max Verstappen coming into the pits.
Yeah, they're racing Max Verstappen for whatever position that may be this afternoon. That's Kimi Antonelli's job. George Russell heads Oscar Piastri at the front of the field now by 8.2 seconds.
The question from here, Oscar, is whether we can get to the end without rain.
I can already see a small bit.
Okay, copy.
That was Oscar Piastri being asked, can we get to the end with minimal graining? But Piastri has already noticed a little bit of graining on the tyre. So can you just explain what graining actually is?
It's when,
best as you can.
It's when you basically scratch the surface of the tyre. It basically slides over the surface and creates like little ripples, kind of ripping on the surface, and then you tend to run the car on that slightly raised up ripped area, and that's what you're running on, kind of this dead rubber area, which gives much less grip than if you had a nice smooth sticky area.
And so that was Piastri essentially being asked, could they make a one-stop work? Because he's on the hard tyre. That's an awful long way to go, and if he's already getting that kind of graining, we have sometimes seen it clear up though as you continue to go into
Not around here. Not around here, I don't think you have. At other circuits, yes, but this again, Harry, it's surface temperature degradation, so that all of them are overheating the surface of the tyres, which is why you're sliding around, which is why you rip the surface, which is why you then get the graining.
It doesn't help either, this track, incredibly smooth as well around this circuit, not very abrasive, was resurfaced last year, gets very little action throughout the course of the year. So constantly evolving too. It's lap 41 of 70. Russell leads by 8.3 seconds to Oscar Piastri. Lando Norris is third. Then comes Charles Leclerc. Max Verstappen is fifth along with Kimi Antonelli. Can they go to the end? It's a 3-stop on the cards for them. Lewis Hamilton 7th, Alonso 8th, Ocon and Sainz the top 10. Ocon, Sainz, Tsunoda in 9th, 10th and 11th are still out there without a pit stop to their name. Hulkenberg is 12th ahead of Bortoletto. Colapinto is 14th ahead of Gasly. Hadjar, Behrman, Stroll, Albon and Lawson 20th and last. 20 drivers still out there with, I have to say, all keeping it very neat and tidy since lap 1.
Yeah, no incidents so far on track. The only slight skirmish was, well, we saw Ollie Bearman have a little bit of a hiccup, didn't we, at turn 8? And we saw Alexander Albon going across the grass at the same corner on lap 1. Apart from that, everybody's been very well behaved.
Lap 41 of 70 here at the Canadian Grand Prix. Let's check in and get an update from day 4 of the US Open Golf. Catherine Downs.
Yeah, the leaders are out on the course, this incredibly difficult course. Oakmore Country Club in Pittsburgh, and the course biting back again on the final day here. Sam Burns, who started the day with a one-shot lead. He still has a one-shot lead, but he's dropped a shot on the second, as has Adam Scott, the two of them out in the last group. JJ Spawn as well, who was up amongst the leaders going into this final round. He's 3 over for his day. He's having a bit of a tough time of it out there. Tyrrell Hatton going well, though, the Englishman. He's at level par, 1 over, just 4 shots off the lead. And Robert McIntyre of Scotland, a glorious eagle for him on the 4th, has propelled him up to 3 under par at 6 shots off the lead. Early stages of the final round. The winner, of course, becomes the US Open champion at the close of play this evening.
And you can hear that on Sports Extra from 8 o'clock this evening, and then on 5 Live following us here at the Canadian Grand Prix as it gets a little bit spicy down at the final chicane with the Alpine of Pierre Gasly and the Haas of Ollie Bearman getting so close as George Russell comes into the pits for his second stop of the race. Hits his marks as the Mercedes mechanics get to work. It's a bit slow though for George Russell on the rear. It's 3.3 seconds when we're staring at the low end of 2-second pit stops on average. That's slow for Russell and Mercedes.
But he's safe though, Harry. Had a nice buffer to Max Verstappen. He's through turn 2 and clear of all the other drivers that have done that pit. So good job by the Mercedes crew.
Yeah, comes out in 4th position. Max Verstappen 4.2 seconds back in 5th place. So Piastri leads this race now, 3.1 seconds. Reported a little bit of grading on his tyres, but is persevering on the hard tyres. Teammate Lando Norris now, having initially started on the hard, has moved on to the medium tyre, is 3 seconds back from his teammate. Norris started this race down in 7th. Leclerc, who started down in 8th. Curiously to us, pitted from the hard tyre onto another set of the hards, has consigned himself to another stop in 3rd. Russell 4th, Verstappen the top 5.
But now what does Piastri do? So Piastri is a little bit of an unknown now. The engineers are asking him, do you think we can do this? Can we make it to the end? But the others are going to be breathing down his neck within the next 10 or 12 laps. So what do McLaren do? What do they know that we don't with regards to the tyre deck?
We're going to get another look at George Russell's pit stop. I thought it was a bit slow on the rear. I think it was rear left that needed tightening for a second time. Hit his marks, gets lifted up onto the jacks, rear left tyre goes on, wheel gun goes in, and then has to go in a second time. That delays the release for George Russell, but he's still out ahead of Max Verstappen.
You wouldn't complain about that pit stop when you're in the next time and in the quick fit, would you? I mean,
no, I don't think you would.
No, the other tyre replacement centres are available, but it is impressive to see Formula One teams at work in pit stops, isn't it? When we say it's slow and it's 3 seconds to change 4 tyres, it's unbelievable.
But sometimes it's slow, and you have to call it when you see it. But for Mercedes, at the moment, fine for them, out back and forth for George Russell. Nice squabbling down in the midfield. Ollie Bearman has just made a nice move on the Alpine of Pierre Gasly, further back in the pack.
The car is getting harder to drive. For his day, that knocks to the granny.
So that's Piastri saying the car is getting harder to drive. There's degradation, but not graining.
I think that's what we've spoken about before, Harry. I think that's just the surface temperature exceeding what he would like, and it becoming harder and harder to drive.
Lap 45 of 70. It's round 10 of the 2025 Formula One World Championship, and Oscar Piastri is coming into the pits at the end of this lap from the lead of this race, having started this race in third, relegated to fourth on lap one by Kimi Antonelli. Has stayed out there longer, with Russell, Verstappen and Antonelli all coming into the pits for a second time, as Lance Stroll side by side with Pierre Gasly, who is being relegated positions left, right and centre here. The Frenchman in the Alpine in the hairpin. Nice move from the Canadian. Stroll gets in front, but they're still going to battle with DRS heading down the back straight, getting so close, and Stroll moves slightly to the left-hand side in the braking zone, comes across Gasly, who has to take to the grass and then cut the corner. Gasly will be on the radio straight away about that one, but Stroll is through as Piastri comes into the pits on lap 45 of 70, and this is the sound of the man who leads the Drivers' Championship coming into this race. Stops in his marks, and it's a nice smooth tyre change from the McLaren mechanics. 2.2 seconds and he is away on the hard tyre, back out into this race.
Back out into this race, but behind Kimi Antonelli again. So nothing's really changed at the front order since lap one. Hamilton also in the pits.
I think Hamilton's been struggling out there, really, feeling like he's in a bit of no man's land. He's gone back out. Another quick stop by the Ferrari mechanics as he feeds out into the pit lane exit. 2 seconds dead for Lewis Hamilton in the pit. So nice, tidy work, and he will get out ahead of Fernando Alonso. The old sparring partners are currently down in 7th and 8th, having started this race in 5th and 6th. But we're still waiting to see how all of this tyre strategy pans out. There are still some drivers in the field, the majority in the midfield towards the back, who have yet to even take their first stop. So we go.
Oh, sorry, Harry.
No, I was just going to comment on Lance Stroll's nice move on Pierre Gasly. And then, actually, your thoughts on Stroll coming into the final chicane here. Just moved over to the left slightly.
Yeah, pinched over on Gasly.
Yeah, that's a penalty. Push me wide. Understood. We're looking at it. Run me on the grass. Yeah, we see.
Yeah, you've got to leave a car's width if you're racing another car, and Lance Stroll clearly didn't leave Pierre Gasly a car's width, so I think the stewards will rightly be looking into that. Going back to Ferrari, they just haven't had the pace over the course of the race distance today. Lewis Hamilton complaining that he's in no man's land, and he's right, as Lando Norris is told to box by his McLaren team.
On lap 47, your current race leader will be coming into the pits. He's on that medium tyre at the moment for what should be his final stop of the race, then, having done one stop, looking for that 2 stop to the end. As further back in the pack, nice battle unfolding between Yuki Tsunoda in 11th and Nico Hülkenberg in 12th. It's not where either of them, particularly Yuki Tsunoda, will want to be fighting for, but Tsunoda, who started from the back, trying to claw his way back into the points as Lando Norris comes into the pit lane from the lead. Charles Leclerc takes over the lead of this race, that 48 of 70, as Norris hits his marks and is released straight away back into the fast lane. 2.4 seconds the stop. Norris back out into the live racetrack on the hard tyre now, feeds out of the pit lane exit into the right-hander of turn 2, behind his teammate down in 6th position.
I think Max Verstappen and Kimi Antonelli might have pitted too early. I think they're going to really struggle against Piastri and Norris potentially come the end of this Grand Prix.
Well, how are they doing on lap times at the moment? Last lap around for Verstappen a 1:15.3, Antonelli a 1:15.2. It's okay at the moment, but it's going to come back to bite them.
Exactly. Right now it's fine because the tyre is still there. Give it another 15 laps and I think that they're going to be really struggling for tyre life.
I wonder if maybe Mercedes made the call to respond too early. If Antonelli maybe had more life in the tyre. We know Verstappen was struggling out there. Maybe Antonelli could have actually stayed out and not had a threat of an undercut. As we've got a car out, it's the Williams, and it is Alex Albon who has pulled up into the marshal's post behind the barrier at the exit of the hairpin. There's a lot of runoff there at turn 10, and he has found a nice smooth exit. Has the power unit gone bang. We know they were managing some issues with that Mercedes power unit in the back of the Williams car, but for Alex Albon, that is back-to-back retirements in Formula One, retired from the Spanish Grand Prix and will not see the checker flag here in Canada.
Yeah, bitterly disappointing afternoon for Alexander Albon. He got caught in between two strategies, I feel, in the opening stint, and just went backwards, and his day was made even more difficult with engine trouble. So this is one to forget for him.
Hulkenberg through on Tsunoda up into 11th as well. Hulkenberg, who was initially running up inside the top 10, looking to get himself back there. So we have one retirement then in the form of Alex Albon, as a round of applause from the Sauber garage celebrating their man Hulkenberg, getting one step closer to the points. And news from the stewards room. We saw earlier the move of Lance Stroll going through on Pierre Gasly, forced Gasly onto the grass as they came to the braking zone of the chicane, and the stewards have given Lance Stroll a 10-second time penalty for that, for forcing another driver off the track.
Yeah, it's harsh, but it's true. He did force Pierre Gasly quite nastily onto the grass, so rightfully so, he's got a penalty.
So we're down to 19 cars in this race. Leclerc leads on lap 50 from George Russell, who is 1.5 seconds back. Verstappen third, Antonelli fourth, Piastri is fifth, Norris, Hamilton, Alonso, Ocon and Sainz the top 10. Hulkenberg is 11th, Tsunoda 12th, Bortoletto, Colapinto, Behrman the top 15. Isaac Hadjar is 16th ahead of Lance Stroll, who will have a 10-second time penalty to serve at either his next pit stop or it will be added to the end of his race time. Gasly is 18th and Liam Lawson is down in 19th spot on the medium tyre, some way away, as Gabriel Bortoletto is the next car in the Sauber to come into the pits. And will have a short run to his pit box, as they were last in the championship last year, so they are the first pit box that greets you as you come into the pit lane in Canada.
Nice new set of medium compound tyres on his car. They'll be fresh for about 3 corners. If this race is anything to go by. Looking at the pace of the cars at the moment, Lando Norris setting the pace with a 14.4, his teammate on a 14.5. Everybody in front of him in the 15s, Charles Leclerc with a 15.4. So everybody's coming towards Charles Leclerc at the moment, and we're seeing a replay of Alexander Albon's engine sounding like a bag of nails, and that's why he's retired from the Canadian Grand Prix.
And very politely parked up right behind a barrier and well out of the way of any racing action, so a yellow flag was enough to cover that, so no safety car intervention needed. Leclerc does lead this race from Russell, but Charles Leclerc must stop again. He has only run the hard tyres today. When he pits, he will come out between Norris and Hamilton. Hamilton's race is compromised with damage picked up early on.
Leclerc's pace is dropping off. This is a straight fight between you, Verstappen and Antonelli.
And there is Tom Stallard describing what the race is all about in these final stages. Leclerc's pace dropping off. He'll have to come into the pits again. So it's George Russell in the Mercedes versus Oscar Piastri in the McLaren, Max Verstappen in the Red Bull, Kimi Antonelli in the other Mercedes. Russell is second, Verstappen third, Antonelli and Piastri the top 5. Norris, Hamilton, Ocon, Sainz, Hulkenberg are the top 10.
I think what Oscar Piastri's engineer is saying is, look, George Russell, he's been too strong this afternoon, but you can absolutely grab second if you get your head down. Kimi Antonelli, Max Verstappen pitted a long time before Oscar Piastri. Charles Leclerc.
What are we waiting for to stop?
We don't want to do too many laps on the medium.
I don't get it. The medium for me is a good time.
Charles Leclerc continuing to ask questions of his strategy, being put onto another set of the hard tyre, and is wanting to be put on the medium, but the Ferrari strategists not wanting him to go on that tyre too soon.
Well, and they're right, the medium compound tyre has not been a good race tyre this afternoon. It hasn't lasted long. It's only quick for 3 or 4 or 5 laps, and then it drops off like a stone. It overheats too quickly, so that's what they're concerned about at this stage. They need to get him another 3 or 4 laps into this Grand Prix before making that jump to the medium.
Lando Norris has the fastest lap in the other McLaren, by the way, only 4 seconds adrift of his teammate Piastri. I think we could look at him and consider him in that Piastri-Antonelli fight as well. This is the sound of the McLaren making its way through the right-hander of turn 5. Charles Leclerc, despite his moans on the team radio, continues to lead this race for Ferrari. Russell second, Verstappen third, Antonelli, Piastri the top 5, Norris, Hamilton, Ocon, who has yet to pit, is in 8th, really going long into this race, along with Carlos Sainz in 9th. They will have to come in sooner rather than later. Nico Hülkenberg looks on course to get some points for Sauber. Yuki Tsunoda is 11th and still needs to come into the pits. Fernando Alonso is down in 12th and should find his way back into the points. Franco Colapinto is 13th. Behrman, Hadjar the top 15. Gasly, Bortoletto, Lawson and Stroll, the 19 drivers remaining in this race. Alex Albon has retired, as Charles Leclerc, we heard him on the radio a few moments ago, has come into the pits. George Russell takes over the lead of this race. Verstappen up to second. Antonelli is in third and feeling the heat from Oscar Piastri. That's the sound of the tyres, the medium tyres that Charles Leclerc has been asking his team for, finally put on to that Ferrari as he emerges and will come out behind Lando Norris, who is 5th. Leclerc should slot into 6th place, quite a way ahead of his teammate Lewis Hamilton. But the battle is on, Sam, for the podium places.
Absolutely. Kimi Antonelli hasn't been inside the top 3 at this stage of a Grand Prix before. How's he going to cope with the pressure? He's got older tyres than Oscar Piastri, who's in probably the fastest car, well, definitely the fastest car of the season so far. But that Mercedes has been working so well around this circuit here in Montreal. It's going to be fascinating to see how the podium positions kind of figure themselves out in these last 16 laps.
An intriguing Canadian Grand Prix so far, which is seeing Mercedes fighting McLaren, fighting Red Bull, Ferrari trying to throw their hat into the ring as well, and some midfielders scrapping it out with 1 or 2 stops to try and steal the final points paying position, so crucial for those fighting in the bottom half of the Constructors' Championship. Williams, who currently occupy 5th, with 1 car out of this race in the form of Alex Albon, with suspected power unit issues for him. And that'll be a worry to Williams, but also to Mercedes, who have had a couple of power unit issues in the last few races for both themselves and their customer teams.
And if it finishes like this, Oscar Piastri ekes out another 2 points on Lando Norris in the World's Driver Championship. It's not a huge amount, so it doesn't really... It's not a big blow for Lando Norris, but it's just Oscar Piastri again beating him yet again this season.
Back up front, currently on the road for the final podium place is Kimi Antonelli in 3rd, keeping Oscar Piastri at bay as they head down the back straight, getting up to speeds of over 300 kilometers an hour before they will stamp on the brakes into the final chicane. Piastri applying the pressure. Antonelli feeling the need to slightly defend his line into the final chicane, out of the quick right-left, back on to the start-finish straight, which curves slightly to the right, in towards turn 1. Thought Piastri might try a dive down the inside. He can't manage it, slots back in behind Antonelli, up over the crest towards turn 3. Antonelli holds on to 3rd, and while they're battling, it's just giving Max Verstappen a little bit of air, who's up ahead, and a little bit of breathing time for the Dutchman.
I think it's only a matter of time before we see the papaya car of Oscar Piastri making moves and getting past Kimi Antonelli. His car looking really dynamic at this stage of the Grand Prix, as we also hear that Liam Lawson has had to retire the car.
That's 2 cars now out of this race. Liam Lawson, the New Zealand driver for Racing Bulls, comes into the pits to retire his car. Antonelli and Piastri still fighting, as well as giving Verstappen a little bit of breathing room, and it's bringing in Lando Norris into the fight as well. So soon the Mercedes, the 18-year-old Kimi Antonelli, is going to feel 2 papaya cars putting the pressure on him. And there's a bit of traffic though coming into the chicane. There will be Isaac Hadjar who will be getting the blue flags and has to move out of the way, and that's just given Antonelli a bit of a reprieve, because Hadjar was really holding Piastri up through the final chicane.
This battle between Antonelli and Oscar Piastri is helping Max Verstappen just slowly creep away from third and fourth place in this Grand Prix. It looks like whenever Oscar Piastri gets close, he then overheats his tyres. It's what it looks like to me. Every single time he gets close, he then struggles for a lap or two, has to get those surface temperatures down again before he mounts another charge. It's one thing, Liam Lawson Radio.
Sorry, mate. It's a hard day, and this is the cherry on top. But we had to take care of this peel.
So that's Liam Lawson's engineer telling him after a hard day they have to call it quits and clearly try and manage a power unit issue there, a Honda power unit in the back of that Racing Bulls.
Yeah, so a couple of laps ago when Oscar Piastri was having a big look at Kimi Antonelli, I think he put a little bit of excess temperature onto the surface of those tyres, and he's paying for it now. It's like he can't get it under control again. I'm sure we'll see him get close up to the back of Kimi Antonelli again, but it just looks so difficult for all the drivers to control the tyre temperatures at this Grand Prix.
And they've got traffic. That is not helping them whatsoever. George Russell leads by 1.2 seconds to Max Verstappen. There's a bit of traffic between those two. A reminder, Verstappen and Antonelli pitted much earlier than the rivals around them, particularly the two McLarens who are trying to thread the needle. They've got a Haas of Ollie Behrman to try and displace, and this is costing them time. It's feeding them into more dirty, warm air that gets spat out the back of a Formula One car, which doesn't help you keep the tyres in the right operating window and the temperatures, which makes you slower and, crucially, makes you fall further away from the man you are chasing down as Antonelli comes into the hairpin. There's still another car that Piastri has to get rid of, and it's Franco Colapinto's Alpine.
Well, when the blue flags show, you've got a certain amount of time. I think it's 3 blue flags, and you must jump out of the way and let the leaders through. So, you know, the back markers, call it back markers, they're mid-runners. That's how quick the leaders have been. They do tend to get out the way as quickly as possible. And it twos and fro's, Harry. You can get one car that holds you up. You can get another car that holds up the car that you're trying to chase. And in the end, it kind of equals itself out.
So they have now cleared the majority of the traffic. There's a few, though, coming out from the pit lane who have just come in for stops. Sainz and Ocon have both just fed out of the pit lane, and Esteban Ocon is right in the path of Oscar Piastri. The Frenchman does get out of the way for Piastri, but then it's another corner through 7 that Lando Norris now has to wait before Ocon gets out of the way. Ocon holds his line and gets given the blue flag. It's Norris who has to go onto the dirty part of the track and get in front. So the midfield runners have now come in, those who were holding on for a one-stop. Impressive for the likes of Ocon and Sainz to go so long into this race. It's paid off for Esteban Ocon, who is currently holding on to the final points playing position, having started down in 14th, trying to reward Haas on what is their 200th race in Formula One with a point to their name. But now, having cleared the traffic ahead of them, George Russell leads 1.8 seconds between himself and Max Verstappen. Then it's another 1.8 seconds back to Kimi Antonelli. That's the current podium as it stands. But Verstappen and Antonelli pitted earlier than Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris, the two McLarens who are hunting them down behind. Piastri 1.5 seconds behind Antonelli, having been slowed down by the slower traffic, and Norris is within a second of his teammate as well, giving McLaren a bit of a headache as we get towards the final 10 laps of this Canadian Grand Prix.
Max Verstappen within 2 seconds of George Russell, some of the closest that we've seen all race long. Max Verstappen can see George Russell. Can he close in? He's got older tyres, but he's eking out 3/10 slower on the last lap. George Russell setting his fastest lap of the race so far. Everybody's in the mid to high 1:14s at the moment. Oscar Piastri with that traffic doing the slowest lap of the top 5 with a 15.1.
Getting into the final stages of this Canadian Grand Prix. It's Mercedes versus Red Bull versus McLaren. For the podium spots in this race, I have to say George Russell with the advantage here of not only track position, but clean air in front of him. Better tyre life than certainly Verstappen and Antonelli. And while Piastri now hasn't been able to close up to Antonelli, I think, as quickly as he would have liked, Norris is all over the back of him. So while it was Piastri a few laps ago piling on the pressure to third place Antonelli, Piastri's now having to look a little bit more in his mirrors at Lando Norris, who will have DRS, and here he is on the radio.
If there was a safety car, we would have a free stop. Would you take it for a soft?
Yep.
Cool.
So that's Lando Norris with strategic options painted out for him. If there is a safety car where somebody might have an incident and then everyone has to bunch up behind the safety car, you can essentially get yourself a free stop by coming into the pit lane, because everybody is having to slow down onto the track. And so if that happens, Norris would come in to switch on to that soft rubber, which we've not seen in the race. Saw it in qualifying yesterday, the quickest rubber, the Red Bull tyre. Those are the options laid out. But so far, only 2 retirements in this race, both of them related to power unit issues coming from Liam Lawson and Alex Albon. Everybody else has been very clean in this Grand Prix.
As the weight of the cars come down, it looks like the degradation is starting to stabilise a little bit. George Russell setting his fastest lap again in this Grand Prix with a 14.3. When the car gets lighter, Harry, you're putting less force into the tyre when combining both longitudinal and lateral G-force, meaning the tyre has a slightly easier time because you're not having that weight slosh around in the middle of the car.
Verstappen now just over 2 seconds back from George Russell, who's starting to stretch his legs a bit. I'll have to feel a little bit for Oscar Piastri, who did not come out of the traffic well, falling back from Kimi Antonelli and really having to defend from Lando Norris. Now 2 teammates who were on alternate strategies, but now brought together on the racetrack in the closing stages of this Grand Prix. The 2 men who are fighting for the championship.
So let's attack Oscar while he doesn't have DRS.
Attack Oscar while he doesn't have DRS. So those are the rules laid down by McLaren. Attack, you can fight, and he doesn't have DRS as Piastri. Norris looks to the inside towards the chicane, doesn't find the way through. Has to close up behind once again. We'll get another dose of the drag reduction system. The letterbox in the rear wing opens in the designated area when you're within a second of the car in front, and then shuts under braking into the right-hander of turn 2. Piastri struggling here. Norris is all over the back of him.
And these are the 2 men that we firmly believe one of them will be winning the Drivers' World Championship. Now we see who wants to win it a little bit more.
Lap 63 of 70. George Russell leads for Mercedes. Max Verstappen 2.3 seconds back for Red Bull. Then Kimi Antonelli, the 18-year-old from Bologna, staring down the barrel of his first Formula 1 podium, currently occupies 3rd, and it's a battle for 4th and 5th on the road right now between Oscar Piastri, who leads the Drivers' Championship, being hunted down by the man who sits 2nd, his teammate Lando Norris, who closes in through the hairpin of the turn 10 right-hander. Back on to the back straight. DRS for Lando Norris. He's lost a little bit of time though coming out of the corner. Will close up underneath him, move to the inside, but he's too far back to try anything in the braking zone.
Oscar Piastri really strong on the exit at turn 10, taking a tighter line on exit and getting back to full throttle, what looks like a little bit earlier than Lando Norris, who takes a wider line on exit, which means a higher minimum speed but a slightly worse exit.
Even though the 2 McLarens are fighting, Kimi Antonelli is still very much within reach here, and actually they are closing on Antonelli because Piastri is now within DRS range of Kimi Antonelli, less than a second between them. So Antonelli isn't able to use this fight between the McLarens to his advantage. Antonelli still very much under pressure here. 64 laps completed out of the 70 allocated for the Canadian Grand Prix. It's round 10 of the 2025 Formula 1 World Championship. George Russell in the Mercedes is looking to try and get his first win of the season. Max Verstappen is looking to try and bounce back after A big haul of points were lost for him in Spain. Kimi Antonelli in third, looking at his first Formula One podium. Oscar Piastri desperate to keep and extend his championship lead. Lando Norris vying to close that gap to his teammate and closing the gap on track as well. Through the final chicane, the DRS will come on the start-finish straight for Lando Norris, but also for Oscar Piastri now, who closes up within half a second of the Mercedes of Antonelli in front through the right-hander of turn 2. It's Kimi Antonelli third, Piastri fourth, Norris fifth as we get into the final few laps of this Grand Prix.
This is some pressure that Kimi Antonelli is having to soak up from the championship leader and the man who sits second in the championship, Lando Norris. Kimi Antonelli at what, 18 years of age, 19 years of age? Boy, this is some pressure, but doing an incredible job out front. George Russell doing a sublime job as well on the last lap, setting the fastest lap of the race with a 14.1.
18 years, 294 days to be precise for Kimi Antonelli. That is how old he is, and would be the third youngest podium finisher of all time, behind Max Verstappen and Lance Stroll, who is currently 18th and the last runner in this Grand Prix. Liam Lawson and Alex Albon have both retired from this race. It's the Canadian Grand Prix. It's Russell, it's Verstappen, the top two, and it's Antonelli who is under pressure now from Piastri, who really closes up through the final chicane, bringing his teammate along with him, but it's a poor exit out of the World of Champions chicane for Piastri. Antonelli lives to fight another few corners. Norris still right behind his teammate and almost pushing him out of the right-hander of turn 2. Cannot find a way past his teammate. It's lap 66 of 70.
Oscar Piastri's good in the middle sector and sector 3, but not as strong as Lando Norris in sector 1. Lando much better on the exit of turn 2 every lap for the past 5 or 6 laps now.
Behind this battle, by the way, Charles Leclerc looks consigned to 6th place with Hamilton in 7th. Alonso, Hulkenberg and Ocon currently holding on to the final points-paying positions. But it's Sainz, Behrman, Tsunoda, Colapinto and Bortoleto, the top 15, with Gasly, Hadjar and Stroll, the 18 cars that remain in this race. Down into the hairpin, Lando Norris sees the move down the inside, but allows Piastri the cut back on the exit, side by side for the McLarens, down the over 1 kilometre, back straight, it's wheel to wheel between the two contenders for the 2025 Formula One World Championship. Norris moving over on his teammate Piastri, who has the inside line into the chicane, but goes in deep. That compromises him on exit. They both get DRS, and it's a repeat of 2011 in Canada as the two McLarens collide. Norris into the back of Oscar Piastri. Norris is out of the race. Broken front wing, front left wheel, front left suspension gone. All the talk about how well the two McLaren drivers were working together as teammates despite going for the championship, but they all knew a crash was coming, and it has happened here in Canada in 2025 in almost a carbon copy move of 2011 with Jenson Button and Lewis Hamilton. This time, it's Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris, and it's Norris out of the race, and it's a safety car on lap 67 of 70, and as that sealed the win for George Russell, we shall see. But Max Verstappen second, Antonelli third. Piastri is able to continue on in this race.
Well, that has massive ramifications for the championship as well, Harry. That's a 12-point swing in favour of Oscar Piastri. Oscar Piastri is going to be leaving here with over a 20-point lead in the Drivers' World Championship. What has happened here, Harry?
It all started in the hairpin. Lando Norris dived down the inside. Piastri got the cut back. Down the back straight. Piastri on the right-hand side, heading towards the inside line for the World of Champions chicane. Wheel-to-wheel stuff. Norris slightly moving to the right. Norris brakes early. Piastri runs deep out of the exit. And this is where they become compromised. Up to the pit wall. And was that a misjudgment from Lando Norris, who ended up hitting the back of Oscar Piastri, losing his front wing and then the front left tyre into the pit wall? Or did Piastri move over? That's the sound of Lando Norris hitting the wall, I have to say. Well, let's hear from him first.
Are you all right, dude?
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's all my bad. All my fault. Unlucky, sorry. Stupid for me.
I have to say, it looked like the gap was always going to close. Lando Norris holding his hands up and saying, my bad, I'm sorry.
No, I'm gutted for Lando. I really am. It takes a brave man and a big man to own up to mistakes. He's more at fault than Oscar, but I honestly, hats off to Lando for instantly saying that, because it's so easy in that situation to be fired up and start using bad language and blaming your teammate and blaming other people, and it goes to show the quality of the driver, the quality of the man, and he is championship material, but these kind of mistakes are going to hurt him, as we see Oscar Piastri now going out on the soft compound tyre at the end of the race, just in case he can get the fastest lap of the race.
Yeah, Piastri came in as there's actually some fire coming from the brake discs of Lando Norris. He's out of the car and walking away though. Lando Norris is out of the Canadian Grand Prix after colliding with his teammate. The two men who sit at the top of the Drivers' Championship, teammates, have collided. We were all talking about when was this going to happen, not if but when. And it has happened at round 10 of 24. The safety car is out. They're running everybody through the pit lane so they can clean up the debris on the start-finish straight. It doesn't help that the start-finish straight curves to the right as well, does it? It sort of puts you a bit offline as you're trying to make that overtake.
It doesn't help at all. I can't imagine we're going to have a one-lap sprint. It would be, I mean, it really would be great if that was the case, and if they can get that car removed quickly, we might be on for a one-lap sprint finish. Wouldn't that be unbelievable?
Yeah, it would be, as Norris has made it back to the McLaren hospitality and heads straight in and getting ready to take his helmet off. George Russell, Verstappen, Antonelli, Piastri, Leclerc, Hamilton, Alonso, Hulkenberg all came in for a free stop just in case we get this back underway.
Well, imagine this, Harry. Oscar Piastri on the soft compound tyres. If they get this going again, could we see Oscar Piastri taking a really unlikely win of this Grand Prix?
George suddenly just aggressively braked.
Understood, thank you. I will check for any erratic driving.
So that was Max Verstappen saying George massively braked down the back straight while following under the safety car, and Verstappen slightly overtaking him at one point.
Verstappen just overtook me under the safety car. Understood, well, look.
I don't think there's anything in that. Max Verstappen was over to the inside of the circuit, so safety car lights are still on, well within sector 3. I don't see this one restarting, Harry. I think that this will be finishing behind the safety car.
What an end to a really intriguing Canadian Grand Prix. And we were looking for a frenetic finish for the podium places. George Russell looked like he was on course to take that victory. Max Verstappen had fallen back, but Kimi Antonelli in third was under pressure from the two McLarens, who were fighting so hard.
Yeah, that incident with Russell now being shown on the feeds, Max. That's pretty blatant. Just don't fall for the gamesmanship, okay? Thank you.
That was Jean-Pierre Lambiase talking to Max Verstappen. A reminder that Max Verstappen is on 11 penalty points, one more, and he gets a one-race ban.
I feel like everything that they say on the radio is said so that the FIA can hear what they say. That the language between Max and Lambiase is always like that, and I love it. I'm all for that, for them trying to do that, because we're looking, this is a game of millimeters, and any advantage you can get, you'll take.
We will finish this race under safety car conditions. The marshals working as quick as they can, but not quick enough before we reach lap 70 of 70. We are on the final lap of the race. The 1995 Canadian Grand Prix winner, Jean Alesi, will wave the checkered flag as they make their way through turn 8 and 9. A right-hander followed by the left-hander. Russell, Verstappen, Antonelli, the top 3. Piastri in 4th. Leclerc, the top 5, ahead of Hamilton, Alonso, Hulkenberg, Ocon and Sainz, benefiting from staying out and only doing one stop. 3 runners out of this one with Norris, Lawson and Albon, but one last stretch down towards the final chicane, and the grandstands and the fans already up on their feet, waving and celebrating of what has been a really enjoyable Canadian Grand Prix, both on track and I'm sure on the pit wall as well, having to figure out how many stops can we do, how quickly are these tyres degrading, and then it all ending in the wall for the 2 McLaren drivers, for Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris. Piastri managing to finish this race, Lando Norris out of it, holding his hands up as we head to the line now, and it will be George Russell who takes the win of the Canadian Grand Prix, his first win of the season. Mercedes on the top step of the podium, Max Verstappen in second, and Kimi Antonelli stands on a Formula One podium for the first time in his career. It's a 1-3 for Mercedes. Crucial points gathered in the constructors' fight. But for George Russell, an incredible race, and actually a really strong weekend from the British racer.
Hugely impressive weekend for George Russell. Pole position, fastest lap and race win. And hats off to Kimi Antonelli, who, as you said, becomes the 3rd youngest driver in Formula One history to stand on a podium. Hats off to Kimi Antonelli.
A really well-needed boost as well, I think, for the young 18-year-old who had a really tough triple header. Good qualifying yesterday, follows it up with a podium, and he had to fight hard for it as well. It wasn't given to him, it wasn't handed to him on a plate, with those 2 McLarens really hounding him towards the end. Here is your race winner.
Superb job. Well done. That was brilliant job. Brilliant drive all weekend. Nice.
Well done, Tim. I made up for last year. Well done, Tim. Well done. Congrats, Kimi. Congrats.
He's been on it all weekend, George Russell, and this does put Mercedes back into second in the Constructors' Championship, ahead of Ferrari. And while McLaren seem out of reach, it is second place that is being battled over between Ferrari and Mercedes. Ferrari with a disappointing day, down in 5th and 6th for them. Charles Leclerc ahead of Lewis Hamilton. And Max Verstappen, though, in second, back on the podium after his penalty last time out. And he kept Russell on his toes, but in the end, Verstappen didn't quite have the full pace.
Didn't quite have enough, did he? I think George Russell managed this afternoon's race really, really well. I think that early stop from Max Verstappen made it, dare I say, maybe a little bit easier.
Yeah, boy. What do you reckon to that, Kimi? Beautiful work, mate. Oh my God. That was... Oh my God. Oh my God.
How's it feel?
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Was needed. Well done, mate.
Kimi Grande. The Grande grows. The small Kimi grows to Grande Kimi.
Kimi Antonelli, the voice of Pete Boddington and Toto Wolff there as well, congratulating him after, as he said, a much needed, no points from the triple header, 2 retirements to deal with, and a home Grand Prix in Imola where he let, I think, the distractions off track get the better of him. What a way to bounce back and up into the next leg of the season.
George, well done. 1 and 3. Good day, a good day.
Good day, sir.
Yeah, it's such a brilliant drive.
Yeah, I think George Russell owes a little bit of this win today to Kimi Antonelli with his pressurising of, well, he was pressurising Max Verstappen in that opening stint, making Max Verstappen do that really, really early first pit stop, which allowed George Russell the opportunity to extend maybe a little bit longer and have effectively fresher tyres for the rest of the Grand Prix compared to Max Verstappen.
Well, we will be analysing all of this Grand Prix in the Checkered Flag podcast, which you will be able to hear a little later on today and possibly tomorrow on BBC Sounds and wherever you get your podcasts. But for now, enjoying the jubilant scenes of George Russell standing on the top of his Mercedes machine, both arms raised in the air, a jump off the car and a hops and a skip towards Max Verstappen, who gives him a friendly handshake before he jumps into the arms of his mechanics and his engineers and Kimi Antonelli for a team hug. And you can see what this means for Mercedes. For George Russell, first win of the season, his fourth career win, and for Kimi Antonelli at 18 years, 294 days, becomes the third youngest podium finisher in Formula One of all time, walking arm in arm to get Wade. And a nice hug as well between Antonelli and Max Verstappen, who made crucial ground up on Lando Norris in the Drivers' Championship. But of course, Norris crashing out means the gap that was 10 points coming into this weekend now extends. Oscar Piastri continues to lead the Drivers' Championship now by 22 points to Lando Norris. Verstappen still in third. Russell, Leclerc, the top five in the Drivers' Championship. Over in the Constructors, McLaren still lead with a hefty margin, 374 points to Mercedes, 199. Ferrari in third, 183, ahead of Red Bull. Williams, the top five. Haas in sixth. Racing Bulls in seventh, ahead of Aston Martin, who go back ahead of Sauber, and Alpine still last. We can almost forget a couple of really good races to shout about in the midfield too. Nico Hülkenberg, back-to-back points finishes for Sauber. Fernando Alonso, 7th place, back-to-back points finishes.
Yeah, great race for Carlos Sainz to get up into the top 10 from a disappointing starting position. Nico Hülkenberg again delivering over and above what that Sauber potentially is capable of. And again, great strategy and great execution from Esteban Ocon. Ocon and Sainz going super long on the hard compound tyre.
Yeah, good work from them to get the final couple of points. Ocon 9th, Sainz 10th, Behrman 11th. Yuki Tsunoda, no points for him, worked his way up into 12th. Then Colapinto, Bortoletto, Gasly the top 15, Isaac Hadjar and Lance Stroll, the 17 drivers that finished this race, with Lando Norris retiring after crashing into his teammate, along with Liam Lawson in the Racing Bulls, power unit issues, and Alex Albon as well with power unit issues, retiring from this race. But let's hear from your race winner with 2016 champion Nico Rosberg.
George, what an amazing drive by you and by the team this whole weekend. Was that the best one of your whole career?
It was amazing to be back on the top step. Obviously, the last time for us was back in Vegas. I felt last year was a victory lost. And then obviously we got the victory today, probably due to the incredible pole lap yesterday. And obviously so happy to see Kimi on the podium as well. So amazing day for the team. Thanks to everybody back at the factory who's been working so hard to get us back fighting for victories. And yeah, feels good.
So has something fundamental changed on the car, or what's going on now? Is Mercedes back?
No, it's a little bit cooler around here. You know, we saw it last year in Canada. I'd love to get our hopes up, but I think the the strength of our car is in these cooler conditions, and let's see going into the coming races. But we'll just enjoy it for now. So
you're not quite sure? You don't think you can maybe keep this going for the next race?
Time would tell. So, we won Austria last year, so maybe that's a good omen. But, we'll enjoy it for the time being. We did have high expectations coming into this weekend, and it worked out as we thought. So, good day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody.
Congrats. Awesome drive. Max, P2. Was that the maximum, do you think, this weekend?
Yeah, I think so. It was quite a good race, even though I think the first two stints we were struggling quite a bit on the tires. So we were doing quite an aggressive strategy. But luckily on that final stint, we managed to hang in there. And actually the pace was a bit better on a bit lower fuel load. So that was good. I think we drove an attacking/defending race. So attacking with a strategy, defending, of course, with the cars behind. But it worked out for us. And I think that was the maximum possible for us today.
On a day like today, do you still think about the championship though? Because it's good points you made up on some on Piastri and a lot on Lando, obviously.
it's a long season, so you need to go race by race, and we'll always do the best we can.
Looking forward to your Red Bull home race with all your fans in Austria?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's always a great weekend there. We've had a lot of great results, and hopefully we can have another strong weekend there.
Thank you very much, Max. Congrats, P2. Kimi Antonelli, you are a F1 podium race finisher. You did it. Is that awesome?
I mean, it was so stressful, but super happy. I had a good start and managed to jump into P3, and just stayed up there at the front. And the last stint I pushed a bit too hard behind Max, and I killed a bit the front left, and I struggled a bit at the end, but really happy to bring the podium home.
Everybody is chanting your name here at the moment. I think you have so many supporters here, We just watched your pass on Piastri, which is what set you up for the podium. Yeah. Take us through that. I mean, did you think you could make it work?
Yeah, I mean, I had a good first launch, and I managed to get alongside. And then in the first corner, I just tried to carry as much speed as possible. And then when I was alongside him in T2, I knew I would have had the advantage, especially going into T3, and really happy to stick that.
It looks like Mercedes is maybe back. Your car looks awesome. Are we going to see a race win from you next?
I mean, that's the goal. But yeah, definitely this track has been good for us. The car has been incredible all weekend. And hopefully we can carry the same momentum into the next few races.
All right, we wish you all the best. Thank you very much, Kimi.
Thank you.
Celebrate, have fun, enjoy.
Kimi Antonelli, third place, and his first Formula 1 podium, behind Max Verstappen in second, and George Russell, the winner of the Canadian Grand Prix. But Sam Bird, what everyone will be talking about from this race is that it happened, and it happened here, that the two McLarens collided.
It did indeed. Lando Norris has held his hands up and said it's on him, it's my fault. I don't expect papaya rules to change, although I can imagine it's not going to be the happiest of garages this evening.
Well, we will be talking more about that McLaren incident and talking through all of the storylines that unfolded throughout the field at the end of 70 laps, the Canadian Grand Prix, on our F1 Checkered Flag podcast, which you can find on BBC Sounds and wherever you get your podcasts. My thanks to Sam Bird. We'll be back next in a couple of weeks' time, back to Europe for Austria at the Red Bull Ring. We're going to go off and do the pod now, but up next, final day's action from the US Open Golf is coming at you, but here on 5 Live before that, your latest news headlines with Stuart Clarkson.
The voice of the